എന്ത് അധികാരത്തിലാണ് നീ ഇത് പറയുന്നത്? ആരാണ് നിനക്ക് ഈ പുസ്തകം? അതായത് സഭയിൽ നിന്ന് കട്ടെടുത്തൊരു പുസ്തകം എടുത്തിട്ട് സഭയെ തെറി വിളിക്കുകയാണ്. സഭയിൽ നിന്ന് കട്ടെടുത്താണിത്. കാരണം എന്താണ്? ഈ ന്യൂ ടെസ്റ്റമെന്റ്, ഞാനതിലേക്ക് വരാം. ന്യൂ ടെസ്റ്റമെന്റ് ഉപയോഗിക്കാൻ അവകാശം ഉണ്ടാവണമെങ്കിൽ ആ ന്യൂ ടെസ്റ്റമെന്റ് ഇതാ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ് തന്ന സഭയോട് അനുവാദം ചോദിക്കണം. അല്ലെ ഇത് കയ്യിലെടുക്കാൻ അവകാശമില്ല.
The Bible is the gift of God, not of the Catholic Church. Catholics contend that the whole world is indebted to the Roman Catholic Church for the existence of the Bible. The Catholic officials falsely and deceptively claim that without the Catholic Church there would be no Bible, and that the mankind can accept the scriptures only on the basis of the Catholic Church, which gathered the books and determined which were inspired. This is another of their attempts to exalt the Church as an authority in addition to the Bible. The Catholic policy of the primacy of the Church over the Bible itself is the proof that the Bible is not the product of the Catholic Church. On the other hand, the Catholic always wanted to suppress the Bible, in one way or the other. The Bible is the gift of God, not of the Catholic Church. The primary author and transmitter of the Bible is God. Human writers are all the Jewish authors. The early church and its leaders were not of Roman Catholic Church. They all belonged to first-century Spirit-filled Pentecostal Church. The Catholic Church began to evolve only from the time of Emperor Constantine of the 3rd century onwards, and gradually ended up as the fallen church, the Babylon the Great. The Bible is inspired and has authority, not because a church declared it so, but because God made it so. God delivered it by the inspiration of the Holy Spirit and declared that it would abide forever. The Catholics are wrong in their assumption that the Bible is authoritative only because of the Catholic Church. The Bible does not owe its existence to the Catholic Church, but to the authority, power and providence of God. The boastful Catholic claim of giving the Bible to the world is an attempt to weaken the Bible as the sole authority and to replace it with their man-made church. If it is true that we can accept the Bible only on the basis of the Catholic Church, that makes the Catholic Church superior to the Bible. This is exactly what Catholic officials want men to believe. Their only problem is that their doctrine comes from their own human reasoning rather than from God. And thus the Catholic Church wants to promote its false doctrines and thereby suppress the truth of God in the Bible. Their logic is a classic example of the fallacy of the circular reasoning. They try to prove the Bible by the Church, and prove the Church by the Bible. Their absurd reasoning which proves nothing. Either the New Testament is the sole authority or it is not. If it is the New Testament, it cannot be the Church, and if it is the Church, it cannot be the New Testament. The writers of the New Testament were not members of the Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholic Church was not fully developed until several hundred years after the New Testament was written. It is not the same church as disclosed in the New Testament. The New Testament books were written by members of the Lord's Church, but they are not its author. God himself is the author of the New Testament. Surely the Catholic Church cannot claim that it gave us the Old Testament scriptures. The Old Testament came through the Jews, who had the holy oracles entrusted to them. Paul said, "What advantage then remains to the Jew, or what is the use of circumcision? Much in every respect. First, indeed, because the oracles of God were entrusted to them. The Old Testament books were gathered into one volume and were translated from Hebrew into Greek long before Christ came to the earth. The Septuagint version was translated by 70 scholars at Alexandria, in Egypt around the year 227 BC, and this was the version Christ and his apostles used. Christ did not tell the people, as Catholics do today, that they could accept the scriptures only on the basis of the authority of those who gathered them, and declared them to be inspired. He urged the people of his day to follow the Old Testament scriptures as the infallible guide, not because man or any group of men has sanctioned them as such, but because they came from God. Furthermore, he understood that the God-fearing men and women would be able to discern by the external and internal evidence, that which books were of God, and which were not of God. Thus, Jesus never raised questions and doubts concerning the gathering of the inspired books. If the Bible is a Catholic book, why the Bible is not mentioning anything about the Catholic Church, and its unique doctrines? Why there is no mention of a pope, a cardinal, an archbishop, a parish priest, a nun, or a member of any other Catholic order in the Bible? If the Bible is a Catholic book, why the auricular confession, indulgences, prayers to the saints, adoration of Mary, veneration of relics and images, and many other rites and ceremonies of the Catholic Church, etc. are not mentioned in the Bible? If the Bible is a Catholic book, how can Catholics account for the passage, in 1 Timothy chapter 3, which says, "A bishop then, must be blameless, married but once, reserved, prudent, of good conduct, hospitable, a teacher, he should rule well his own household, keeping his children under control and perfectly respectful." For if a man cannot rule his own household, how is he to take care of the Church of God? If the Bible is a Catholic book, why does it condemn clerical dress? Why does it teach against the adoration of Mary? Why does it show that all Christians are priests? Why does it condemn the observance of special days? Why does it teach that all Christians are saints? Why does it condemn the making and adoration of images? Why does it teach that baptism is immersion instead of pouring? Why does it forbid us to address religious leaders as Father? Why does it teach that Christ is the only foundation and not the Apostle Peter? Why does it teach that there is one mediator instead of many? Why does it teach that a bishop must be a married man? Why is it opposed to the primacy of Peter? Why does it oppose the idea of purgatory? Why is it completely silent about infant baptism, instrumental music in worship, indulgences, confession to priests, the rosary, the Mass, and many other things in the Catholic Church? Catholics argue that since the Council of Hippo in 390 AD proclaimed which books were actually inspired and placed them in one volume, all are indebted to the Catholic Church for the New Testament and can accept it only on the authority of the Catholic Church. This claim is wrong because of many reasons. First, it cannot be proven that the church which held the Council of Hippo in 390 AD, was the same church which is now known as the Roman Catholic Church. The Church of 390 was a church altogether different from the Roman Catholic Church today. Furthermore, in the proceedings of the Council of Hippo, the bishops did not mention nor give the slightest hint, that they were for the first time officially cataloguing the books of the Bible for the world. It was not until the fourth session of the Council of Trent of the 16th century AD that the bishops and high-ranking officials of the Catholic Church officially catalogued the books they thought should be included in the Bible and bound them upon the consciences of all Catholics. Secondly, God did not give councils the authority to select his sacred books, nor does he expect men to receive his sacred books only because of councils or on the basis of councils. It takes no vote or sanction of a council to make the books of the Bible authoritative. Men were able to rightly discern which books were inspired, before the existence of ecclesiastical councils, and men can do so today. Thirdly, it cannot be proven that the Catholic Church is solely responsible for the gathering and selection of the New Testament books. In fact, it can be shown that the New Testament books were gathered into one volume and were in circulation long before the Catholic Church claims to have taken its action in 390 at the Council of Hippo. In the following we list some of the catalogues of the books of the Bible which are given by early Christian writers. In 326, Athanasius, bishop at Alexandria, mentions all of the New Testament books. In 315 to 386, Cyril, bishop at Jerusalem, gives a list of all New Testament books except Revelation. In 270, Eusebius, bishop at Caesarea, called the father of ecclesiastical history, gives an account of the persecution of Emperor Diocletian, whose edict required that all churches be destroyed and the scriptures burned. He lists all the books of the New Testament. He was commissioned by Constantine to have transcribed 50 copies of the Bible for use of the churches of Constantinople. Origen, who lived during 185 to 254, names all the books of both the Old and New Testaments. Clement, of Alexandria, names all the books of the New Testament except Philemon, James, 2 Peter and 3 John. In addition, we are told by Eusebius, who had the works of Clement, that he gave explanations and quotations from all the canonical books. Tertullian, contemporary of Origen and Clement, mentions all the New Testament books except 2 Peter, James and 2 John. Irenaeus, quoted from all New Testament books except Philemon, Jude, James and 3 John. Justin Martyr mentions the Gospels as being 4 in number and quotes from them and some of the epistles of Paul and Revelation. Besides the above, the early Church Fathers have handed down in their writings quotations from all the New Testament books, so much so that it is said that the entire New Testament can be reproduced from their writings alone. Thus, the New Testament books were in existence in their present form, at the close of the Apostolic Age. As a matter of fact, the apostles themselves put their writings into circulation. Fourthly, the Catholic claim of giving the Bible to the world cannot be true because they have not been the sole possessor of the Bible at any time. Some of the most valuable Greek Bibles and versions have been handed down to us from non-Roman Catholic sources. A notable example of this is the Codex Sinaiticus, which was found in the monastery of St. Catherine, of the Greek Orthodox Church, at Mount Sinai in 1844, and is now in the British Museum. It contains all of the books of the New Testament, and all but small portions of the Old Testament. Scholars are certain that this manuscript was made early in the 4th century, not later than 350 AD. This manuscript found by a German scholar named Tischendorf, who was a Protestant, and this manuscript, which is the most complete of all, has never been in the hands of the Roman Catholic Church. Another valuable manuscript that has never been possessed by the Roman Catholic Church is the Codex Alexandrianus. It, too, is now on exhibit in the manuscript room of the British Museum in London. It was a gift from the Patriarch of Constantinople, of the Greek Orthodox Church, to Charles I in 1628. It had been possession of the patriarchs for centuries, and originally came from Alexandria, Egypt, from which it gets its name. Scholars are certain that this manuscript was also made in the 4th century and, along with the Codex Sinaiticus, is thought to be one of the 50 Greek Bibles commissioned to be copied by Constantine. In the light of the foregoing, the boastful claim of the Roman Catholic Church that it has been the sole guardian and preserver of the sacred scriptures down to the present, is nothing but pure falsehood. The Bible is not a Catholic book. Catholics did not write it, nor does their doctrines and church meet the description of the doctrine and church of which it speaks. The New Testament was completed before the end of the 1st century AD. The things in it do not correspond to the Catholic Church, which hundreds of years after the death of the apostles, slowly evolved into what it now is. The Catholic Church is not the original and true church, but a church born of many departures and corruptions from the New Testament church. Even if the Catholic Church could prove that it alone is the sole deliverer of the scriptures to man today, it still remains that the Catholic Church is not following the Bible and is contrary to the Bible. Furthermore, even if the Catholic Church could show conclusively that it alone is responsible for gathering the books, it does not prove that the Catholic Church is infallible, nor does it prove that it is the author of the Bible. God has at times used evil agencies to accomplish his purpose. The Roman Catholic Church neither invented nor created the Holy Bible. The books of the Holy Bible were well recognized in ancient days, as we can well see from early church quotations in ante-Nicene Fathers' writings. The Council of Nicaea did not pick and choose which books would or would not go into the Bible. They simply and publicly testified what books were already recognized by Christ's universal church, having a great consensus among themselves. Did the Roman Catholic Church really give us the Bible? If the Catholic Church really did give us the Bible, then why do so many of its teachings either contradict the Scriptures, or cannot be found within its pages? For example, doctrines like confession to a priest, Mary's sinless birth and life, Mary's assumption into heaven, indulgences, purgatory, the treasury of merit, the office of pope, praying to saints, etc., etc. Interestingly, we find none of these in the Bible they claim to have given us. Considering how many unscriptural beliefs are taught and practiced by the Roman Catholic Church, it is clear that the Roman Catholic Church cannot have any role in the production of the Bible. Rather, as it has proved in the history, it is more interested in destroying the Bible. What do you mean by saying the Catholic Church gave us the Bible? Is he suggesting that the Catholic Church wrote the Bible? If so, this certainly cannot be the case, since the Old Testament was written long before the Catholic Church existed. Neither can they claim to have written the New Testament, since that was written by the apostles and their close associates. And the apostles knew nothing of those teachings which are uniquely Catholic. What Catholics generally mean when they say that their church gave us the Bible is that the Catholic Church, through certain councils, was responsible for revealing to us the canon of the Bible. If this is indeed what they mean, then we ask him our second question: when did this happen? And they will usually say that the canon was finally settled at the Council of Hippo of 393 AD and the Council of Carthage of 397 AD, and it was later restated and reaffirmed at the Council of Trent in 1546 AD. There are many problems with their claims. The councils of Hippo and Carthage were local or provincial councils, synods, and they could not finally settle the canon or any other issue that affected all the churches. They were not ecumenical councils, because their rulings were not binding on the whole church. The reason that this is a problem is because the Catholics often stress the idea that we really need infallible certainty on the canon. But according to the New Catholic Encyclopedia, of 1967, Volume 3, page 29, the canon of Scripture was not infallibly declared until the Council of Trent did so in 1546. According to Catholic doctrine, the proximate criterion of the biblical canon is the infallible decision of the Church. This decision was not given until rather late in the history of the Church, at the Council of Trent. Before that time there was some doubt about the canonicity of certain biblical books, i.e., about their belonging to the canon. To make matters worse for Catholics, the canon given by the councils of Hippo and Carthage does not match the canon which was given by the Council of Trent. The canon of Hippo and Carthage comes from the Septuagint, the Old Testament in Greek written between 300 BC and 100 BC, but the Council of Trent specifically mentions using the canon of the Vulgate, which is Jerome's Latin translation written between 382 to 405 AD. Hence the Council of Trent, 4th session, declared that, "But if anyone receive not, as sacred and canonical, the said books entire with all their parts, as they have been used to be read in the Catholic Church, and as they are contained in the Old Latin Vulgate edition, and knowingly and deliberately condemn the traditions aforesaid, let him be anathema." The problem is that both canons contain a book called First Esdras, but the earlier First Esdras is different from the one at the Council of Trent. According to a chart in the New Catholic Encyclopedia, the Septuagint's First Esdras is equivalent to the Vulgate's Third Esdras. And it specifically says, the Council of Trent definitively removed it from the canon. See New Catholic Encyclopedia of 1967, Volume 2, pages 396 to 397. So, Trent declared Third Esdras in the Vulgate, which was the First Esdras of the Septuagint, to be uncanonical, and it was therefore removed from the canon. So, if this book was removed from the canon by Trent, it must have been there in the first place sometime earlier. And that is because it was there from the earlier councils, i.e., Hippo, Carthage, etc. So, by the Catholic Church's own admission, the earlier canon was different from Trent's, because it had an extra book. So, the idea that Trent accepted and simply reaffirmed the earlier council's canon is wrong. The irony in all this is that according to the quote from Trent above, rather than affirming, this ecumenical council actually condemns with anathema the councils of Carthage and Hippo because their canon did not match the Vulgate's. Moreover, taking 1,500 years to recognize the canon is not very reassuring, especially for a church who insists on the need for infallible certainty. Let's also think about the issue, who wrote the Bible. God can use anybody or anything, good or bad, to accomplish his will. But this only proves that God is sovereign. God has used a whale, a rooster, and even a donkey to do his will, but that doesn't mean that we are to submit to whales, roosters or donkeys. God can also use evil men to prophesy, as we see in John chapter 11, but are we expected to yield to them? Obviously not. God can even use the devil to accomplish his will, but does this mean that we should be obedient to Satan? The point is that, just because God has used a person or group in some way to bring about his will, that doesn't necessarily mean that we must now submit to them. We should only submit to a person or church whose teachings are biblical. The Jews would have more right to claim to have given us the Bible than the Catholic Church has. There is no one person or group that is responsible for giving us the Bible. Just as the books of the Old Testament were, little by little, accumulated over the years by God's people, who recognized his Spirit moving in his prophets, and eventually writing it down, it was the same with the Apostles and the New Testament. It was a gradual process with many believers involved over time. And just as the Jews recognized Old Testament scripture without an infallible authority, it was the same with the early Christians. Although the councils did help, to a certain extent, to crystallize the canon in the minds of the early Christians, these councils, for the most part, merely affirmed the books that were already widely accepted. They were simply attempting to make it official. Simply recognizing something, the canon, is not the same thing as being responsible for its existence. The Bible no more owes its existence to the early church, than gravity owes its existence to Sir Isaac Newton. Hence the idea of the Catholic Church giving the Bible to the world is yet another boastful, and empty claim coming from the Catholic side.